Hey girl, hey.
Hey girl, hey. How you doing?
I'm good, girl. I'm
Good.
excited about today's show.
Yes, me too. So guys, we don't know if you know, but this month is May and it is Mental Health Awareness Month. And today we have a very special guest, a good friend of mine and colleague, Dev. And Dev, you can give your whole government name if you want to, but there it is. I'm just saying Dev, okay? when
I'm
we
into
pass,
it.
yes, when we pass the mic over to him, he'll tell you a little bit of his background. But we chose him because he has a very inspirational story that we guys want you to hear to kick off this series for mental health awareness. So, Dev, I want to give our viewers a little bit, or listeners, excuse me, a little bit of background on how you and I met. So, let's just kick off the love fest with that.
Yeah, I mean, it really is a love affair. We met, so Shantell and I, well, all three of us work for the same company.
Yes.
Yes.
And we met, I guess it was like 4 years ago.
Yeah. Can you believe it's
Yeah,
been that long?
2016. And I had just got out of training in my role of a department manager, and I was sent like super last minute to a store opening in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
And it just so happened that Shantell was there as well.
Yes.
And, honestly, H&M has brought so many people into my life, and I'm sure the two of you can agree that as well.
Indeed.
Um, but there's, with a lot of people coming together, there's a lot of personalities and a lot of strong energy. And I can just remember my experience of training was, a 10-week training period, and I was constantly meeting all these people. And it was, kind of intimidating. And it definitely, I felt nervous a lot of the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember meeting you, Shantell, and just like as soon as I walked into the room, I heard you laughing, and I was like, okay, I gotta know who she is. Like, I just
Yes.
knew, like,
I
this
love it.
person is like, and this is before any kind of like faith or anything came into my
Oh
life. So
my
I was just
God.
trusting, like, all right, something's going right here.
Oh
And
my God.
I
I
just
love
remember
that.
from then on out, it was, we did the opening together, and I mean, no shade, but it wasn't the best time in our lives. It was pretty
No.
stressful.
Yes, very.
But we
Very.
we had it we came together, and I mean, I spent all every day with you. And
Yes, yes. And Shana, I just cannot tell you, our energy, our optimism, the positivity, it was the same. And I jokingly say this, both of us had that vision or purpose in our mind that listen, we're going to be the next D team, district team for all of you who don't work retail. We kind of like put that in motion. But the bigger picture is that we both had ambition on our mind. We both wanted to grow in our careers at that time. And we wanted to empower each other. And that's what I really got from my initial meeting with Dad. I just loved how happy you were, and it was infectious. And so yeah, and we did multiple store openings together. Even when you went to Penn State and you moved along to that store, I was able to reunite with him. But I've always loved him, Chanel. Since then, still
Wow.
do. Like it's ridiculous.
That's amazing. That's
Yes,
amazing. Well,
yes.
I just, honestly, we kind of connected via Instagram, and honestly, your personality, Dev, it just really exudes so much good energy. You have a wonderful spirit, and it's very contagious.
Mhm.
So even if, just that you and I were able to connect on that level via Instagram, I'm like, "Oh, okay, I love him."
well,
So I think that's pretty cool, and it says a lot about you, as a person, that you're so open and you're transparent, and then you just have that very easygoing spirit about yourself. So yeah, that's wonderful.
well, thank you. And I have to say that before all of this COVID-19 stuff kind of happened, there was a workshop that was supposed to happen that we were both on the list for.
Yes,
And I remember
yes.
seeing it, and I was like, I'm finally going to meet her in person. Like, this is finally happening. And then, of course, everything was canceled, and here we are on our couches. But
Yes.
So
Yes.
eventually it will happen. We will be in person and we will meet, but I feel the same way. I mean, I've always loved Shantell. And I knew she had this twin out there somewhere doing her thing. And I was
Yes.
like, someday that will
Yes.
be right.
Awesome. Awesome. So, just to get right into it, how are you doing so far with everything going on, the COVID-19? How are you managing?
I feel, and it's crazy when I say this out loud to some people, but
Hmm.
I'm honestly the happiest that I think I've ever been in
Wow.
the
Ooh.
27 years that I've been on this earth in
Wow.
this
Yes.
form. Um, I was in Delaware when the coronavirus outbreak kind of started in this country. I
Mm-hmm.
was supporting a store there, and I was sent there for a difficult task for work. So I was really hyper focused on just like, work, work, work. Like I'm here to do a job. And I started meeting some great people in the area and through my recovery community. And I was really loving my time there. And then it kind of came to an end abruptly. And as soon as I got back to Pittsburgh, which is where I'm living right now, I just kind of said to myself, like, okay, like, you have 2 weeks off. So just just take the time. Like, you never get this time. You never have time to just be with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And then of course 2 weeks turned into 3, which turned into a furlough, which turned into here we are. I don't know when I'm going back to work.
Yes.
But I really felt, those first couple weeks of all of us being in this, like either working from home or not working at all, or whatever
Mm-hmm.
situation you were in, like there was from out the gate a lot of pressure. I felt like from social media and TV and media of just like, if you're not coming out of this, like, and you guys have talked about this before on an earlier episode that I super related with, but
Oh, I
the
love it.
narrative was like, if you're not coming out of this with like a side hustle and like 18 different languages and
I
like
love it.
losing 100 pounds, like you don't need anything. And I just couldn't identify with that. I was like, you know what? Like, I'm going to stay quiet. I'm going to take small steps to, make this time enjoyable for myself, but I'm not out there trying to do anything crazy. And more power to anybody who is. We all have our own journeys, but after giving myself that space to just be and to just accept what was happening and really understand that like I have no power over any of this. Like
Mm,
I'm not God. I can't take the coronavirus away anytime soon. So
right.
I just need to be here. And it's been so incredibly wonderful to, work on my recovery, connect with old friends, take the time to listen to my friends who are doing podcasts or have a YouTube channel or have a blog or whatever it may be.
Love it.
And I just feel so full and connected. And honestly, like my
Wow.
perspective of what matters to me has shifted so dramatically that I don't know what life looks like for when we do go back to work and what my career
Yes.
looks like, because I have a different idea of what it means to be successful now.
Oh my God, that is so so good. Like you touched on so many points.
Yeah.
The adjectives, full, being full. That means so much. My goodness.
Mm-hmm.
And it goes right into one of the first things that we want to talk about: the importance of mental health.
Mm-hmm.
And you said a lot of key things, and I just want you to expound upon them. What's important to you when it comes to mental health? What does that mean?
Yeah, so I feel like I should put a statement out that I am not in
Yeah.
any way, shape, or form an expert on any of these things that I'm about to talk about. This is my
Mm-hmm.
experience, so take it
Yes.
or leave it. And if anybody wants more information on any of the things I mentioned, please feel free to reach out to me. But I find that for me, I've struggled with mental health my entire life. Growing up as a young gay boy in a very, very small town, a red town, if you will,
Wow.
Yes.
in central Pennsylvania. I was the only gay person. There was, I grew up in an area where like we didn't even have anybody that wasn't white. And
Mm.
if there was somebody that was a different skin color than me, it was like rare. And generally they didn't grow up in the area. Somehow like randomly they happened to be there. So that, just you can imagine for anybody listening, like the mindset of that town is different because we just, they weren't exposed to things that, you're exposed to when you grow up in an area that has a lot more diversity. So
Yes.
of course, my story includes bullying. My story includes fear and anxiety at all times of just like, is someone going to out me before I'm ready to come out? Is my family going to
Wow,
disown
Dad.
me? Like all of those things that any, person on the queer spectrum can relate to. So I've struggled a long time. And I remember I started therapy when I was 14 years old. My grandmother died, my Nana, who was like my near and dear, like the rock of my family, and pretty much the only member of my family that I was really, really, really close with. And
Wow.
she passed away when I was 14, and that brought up a lot of grief and a lot of regret about how I dealt with things towards the end of her life. And I immediately started into counseling at my high school. And it kind of went from there. I mean, I was kind of in and out of therapists and counselors, on and off of antidepressants. And then it really just went beyond that to, what later would be an addiction to drugs and alcohol. So my experience with mental health has been that my entire life has been the fight to figure out what it means to be mentally well, or healthy mentally, spiritually, and really also like what it means to take your own journey in that. Because in our society now, there's a lot of self-help books, a lot of people who come on to podcasts and claim to, do these things and you'll be happier, or do these things. And for me, have had to find what works for me. And
Right.
that comes from my recovery program, which led me to a relationship with a power greater than myself, which I choose to call God, but you can call it whatever you want. It's a power that we're all entitled to. And that's really what has changed the game for me.
Oh, that's just deep, Dev. So I know that when you said, especially being, as you said, definitely being gay, and being you have spoken about this on many fronts, just not being able to be who you are. How can you talk about the significance of that, of keeping that secret, and that fear of not wanting to be outed? By a time in which you weren't ready. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think the unfortunate thing about being, now an adult and having to go back through in therapy and kind of rework some of the trauma of when we're younger is, and it's like when we're kids and when we're, little and young, we are just so vulnerable to so much. And
Yes.
and the slightest little thing can set us up for like the most extreme things later on in life. And I think that's a really big thing for me, has been having to keep that secret, and feeling like I didn't belong, or I wasn't, there was something wrong with me. Shame is feeling that you are wrong. Guilt is I did something wrong. Shame is I am wrong. And for so long I grew up thinking I am wrong. There is something wrong with me, and I need to, I need to do this in order to get closer to what is right. And I've been able to unpack a lot of that work and realize that like there was not a lot I could do about my circumstances. But the thing is what makes me sad now is how much fear rolled my life back then. Just like not being, I was a child, and I can remember like birthday parties. I come from a family of divorce. So I had a lot of grandparents. I had step grandparents, blood grandparents, like everyone in my family's divorced. And the one thing that my family did right, they did a lot of things wrong, but the one thing they did right was they always showed up for me. So I have all these memories of birthday parties and Christmases and things like that with a ton of extended family members of all different, and everyone put a smile on for my sake. But my memories are always of how fearful I was, of like,
Wow.
what if this happens? Or, what if I spend too much time talking to that member of the family and not enough with this one? Like I was such a scared child that I
Wow.
couldn't let myself enjoy anything. I robbed myself of the joy of just being in a family. And I spent so much time longing for what my friends had in their families, and looking back on it, like it was there. It was just,
Wow.
I was conditioned to not accept it because I was so fearful of what would happen if I was truly myself.
Wow.
Wow.
Now, when it comes to Dev speaking about mental health, Why do you think there's so much of a taboo when people hear about that? I feel like people just naturally just go into a shell
Mhm.
of secrecy and they hide. What do you think, why does that happen?
I think that one of the things as a society now that we struggle with the most is we struggle to accept things that we cannot see. And I
Mm,
think that we're seeing it right now firsthand with this coronavirus. We cannot see it. We might not be able to see the repercussions of the virus if nobody in our life has unfortunately had to suffer from it. So we have a hard time really believing what we cannot see. And mental health,
mm,
a lot of times there is no, you can't see it. And we only want to talk about the things, even with mental health. I've noticed, like, we want to talk about an eating disorder when is 90 pounds on their deathbed from starving themselves with anorexia, but we don't want to talk about the girl who you know overweight or looks healthy in a normal sense or whatever that would be, that's still struggling with anorexia and is still obsessing over his or her food, and is still just as sick as that person. Like, it's like we need the extreme to accept it. And I think that
Yes,
that's what,
yes.
because I've done
wow.
that myself. I identify now as a 27-year-old that I have struggled with eating disorders before, but I always told myself, like, no, I don't have an eating disorder. I'm A, not skinny, B, I'm not like starving myself. But I can tell you that as a person, I can be super food obsessed, and I can go on a crash diet, and I can work out, run 7 miles after I eat a cheeseburger because I feel guilty. That's an eating disorder. That's the
Right.
same thing as
Yes.
somebody who, has the stereotypical symptoms of an anorexia or a bulimic. Um, so I
Absolutely,
think
Dev.
that as a society, like, we want the extremes, and I think it's hard. And I also think that our generation is pushing forward a lot of boundaries right now. And we see it in the LGBTQ community, where it's there, we're seeing a lot of different gender identities, and a lot of people are talking about it. And it opens the conversation in a great way, but it also allows for, like, it's hard to know where to turn to in the conversation, because everybody can kind of contribute their own thoughts on it now. And I think that we also want, like, an expert opinion. You know what I mean? Like we're
Mm,
more inclined to listen to somebody who has letters beside their name than say, oh,
mm.
my friend down the street is, trans, or has an eating disorder, is in recovery from an addiction to drugs and alcohol. Let me talk to them and see their experience. We would rather just, like, read a book about it and get that fact. So I think it's hard to talk about
Mm.
it. I think there's shame involved. It's still very shaming. It's not, mental illness is not in any way, shape, or form something that's, attractive to be a part of or to be in. It's ugly, and it's hard to, like, admit that you're involved in it, whether it's because you're suffering from it or someone you love suffers from it. And I think that also makes a lot of people turn away from it in a time where we care so much about what our image is, and it just doesn't fit the
Right.
brand a lot of times.
Wow. Wow, that's really deep. And I just want to add to your point with everything that you just said. I also believe that there is a hint of vulnerability that needs to be displayed when you talk about mental health. And I think that's something, especially we see it in our leadership, as leaders in the workforce, having that sense of vulnerability. Hey, I don't know how to do that particular task, but I know you know how to do it. Can you empower me with the tools so that I can bring it forth? Those kind of that vulnerability is something that we are not, as a society, cultured to
Mm-hmm.
have. And that's something that I think plays a huge role when we get to talk about mental health, mental wellness. Again, and I'll tell you this, Dev, just to be quite honest with you, I can tell you in the African American community, it's always been a taboo thing. People don't talk about wellness, like mothers going through postpartum depression. Honestly, I've seen it spoken more openly with, people of other races, especially, white people in general. They'll come out and say, hey, white women, hey, I'm going through this. I kind of, and and our culture, that's something that is slowly but surely coming to the surface, but historically it's something that was hidden. A woman just
That's
had to
right.
do, you know what I mean? You just had to go through that, and nobody taught you the angst of the parenthood and stuff like that. So I think it's culturally involved
I
too.
agree with you 100%. The vulnerability piece is what's missing in everything. And it's the we
Yeah.
need to be
Yes.
strong, and so many people view being vulnerable as being weak when it's actually the
Yes.
opposite. I
Yes.
mean, being vulnerable is the most courageous thing that you could possibly do, and therefore the most strength you can have is when you're being vulnerable. And I listened to a podcast a couple weeks ago with Tarana Burke, who founded the Me Too movement well before the Twitter hashtag became a thing. And she built the
Yes.
Me Too movement. It started just like Tell on everything, an idea and a dream, and it became the reality that it is now. But it started with building. She says building empathy through community, and that fact
Mm.
of being able to say, if I'm somebody who's a sexual assault survivor, being able to say I went through this, and then somebody telling me too, is so much more impactful than somebody saying I'm sorry that you went through that. And so much with mental health, and I
Absolutely.
Wow.
think this is why recovery groups work so well, because if I come to you guys and say I'm really down today, I'm really depressed, I'm living in a lot of fear, whatever it may be, and you guys say I'm really sorry that that's happening, I'm going to feel othered. I'm going to feel shamed. I'm going to feel like, ooh, they don't know what's going on. But if
Mhm.
you guys say to me too, this is what I'm struggling with, then we build that community and we can find a solution to get through it together.
Yes. Oh, that's powerful.
So powerful.
Truly. And I 100 wholeheartedly believe in that. And that's a good spin because I've never heard it said in that way, but that's going to make me conscious because I do feel like, exactly to your point, Deb, when you do say, oh, I'm sorry you're going through that, that does kind of close the door on you
Mm-hmm.
going further and explaining what you're going through versus when you say that me too and you're opening up with that vulnerability, that word again, right? Then you guys are getting through it together. That
Mm-hmm.
is beautiful. I love that, Deb. I
Mm-hmm.
love that. So with that said, can you talk about some of the battles you faced in dealing with mental health?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing is, I identify as an addict, a recovering addict, but through and through, I have the disease of addiction. And it primarily came out through drugs and alcohol. But now that I've had some time away from the drugs and alcohol, I can see very clearly how easily it is for my addiction to come out in other ways. I've mentioned food is a big one for me, and exercise. Being
Mm,
I mean, at this point, just being alive in 2020, the pressure of being a certain body type is still just as bad as it was years ago. I think it's even worse
yes.
now because of social media, and there's so many rules that are set up by God knows who, by nobody, because like we should ignore them
Right.
all. But so I struggle, as a gay man. I want to be desired. I want to be skinny. I want to be thin, but you don't want to be too thin. You want to be muscular because you want to be strong, but you don't want to be too strong. Like it's ridiculous.
Right.
And
It
so,
is.
the disease of addiction for me will come out in any sort of way, whether it's if
Hmm.
I'm not drinking and using drugs, like I'm still shopping, I'm still going to the store and impulse buying, or I'll look for it in love. I mean, I think one big thing that nobody wants to
Wow.
talk about at all is sex and love kind of addictions of like I'll look for it
Yes.
in another person. If I can't get it from a drug or an alcohol and I'm not feeling whole myself, like the first thing I'll do is try to find it in another person. And it's a struggle. It's a constant every day, one day at a time. I mean, we don't say that in the recovery community for no reason. I mean, it truly is one day at a time. And I think mental health in general is the same way. We don't know how much life we're supposed to live or how much life we get to live. We really only know we are here right now. And there are certain days where I just tell myself, like, okay, no bad day will last forever. Like, no good day lasts forever. No bad day lasts forever. So, like, okay, today's a crappy day. Tomorrow, I just need to make it through today. We'll see what tomorrow brings. Um, because I need to hold on to just staying present. And I think through
Yes.
my battle with addiction too, it's it's all led me to what I think is totally missing in our society at large, which is why I've been so supportive of your podcast and our friend Janaya and her business of Fashioned in Favor,
Yes.
because I think what's missing, and I'll go back to what I said before with, we refuse to believe what we cannot see, or we have a hard time believing
Yes.
what we cannot see. And I think what's changed my life so much is my relationship with a power greater than myself, which I choose to call God. Um,
Oh, I love
and
that.
I really, you know, and I used to roll my eyes and like, I was not a faithful person before. I was not faith-based at all. And
Wow.
I would cringe when people would say, you just need some God in your life. And I would be like, no, I need like more money, a husband, to not be crazy, to like be skinnier. Like I need all these other things. I don't need God. Like, please step back. And now I'm
Right.
here, you know, 27 years old, single, probably the chunkiest I've ever been, and loving myself for it
I
I
because really,
love
love
like,
it.
it.
I have faith now, and I know that no matter what happens, I could be poor on the streets with nothing. I still have a power greater than myself that will lead me through to the next thing, and I'll be okay. As long as I have that faith, I'll be okay. It may not be beautiful, it may
Yes.
not be glamorous, but I'll be okay. It'll be, you know.
Oh,
Deb, you are
Deb, you're about to bring
preaching.
tears
Okay. You are
to my
preaching.
eyes. Okay. That just, I mean, my spirit, man, is just bouncing off the walls right now because I'm just so proud of you. And, you know, that's so impactful because we built up so much allure and faith and material things that do not matter. You can't carry that into the
Yes.
next
All of
life.
those things are ephemeral. They're temporary.
Yes,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
yes, yes. And you're building all that reserve, your reservoir, and all of that junk. And then empty spiritually. You can see people who are millionaires and they're still, and I hate to say this, you know, jumping off the bridge because they cannot handle, you know, this COVID,
Mm-hmm.
you know what I mean? Being down to their last dollar. They don't, because they don't have that greater faith that you're speaking to, and it's very potent and it's very powerful, Deb. And I'm so glad at 27 that you've come to this place in your life. You know what I mean? It takes people a lifetime to talk in the way in which you're speaking.
It's,
Truly.
well,
Amen.
thank you so much. And I mean, it's truly, and it comes from, you have to hit a place where faith is the only thing that you believe is going to get you out of it. And I'm
Wow.
so lucky that it took me only to 27 to get to that place. Because there are people who go their whole lives and don't get a handle of this thing. And you know, it's one day at a time. There's no guarantee that tomorrow I won't, you know, as we say in the recovery community, like go back out. Today I'm clean and sober, so that's good. But for me, I had to learn. I had to learn that like no boyfriend is going to fill me up. No job is going to fill me
Mm.
up. No body size or pant size is going to fill me up. No amount of money is going to fill me up. I mean, Shantell, you know, because we've worked together and we've talked about work.
Mm-hmm.
I lived and breathed for the organization
Ooh,
that we
child.
worked for. And
Yes, you
it
did.
was like everything. I mean, I went all over the state of Pennsylvania to support wherever it was
Yes, you
that
did
needed me
that.
so I could get one step forward in my goal. And in a matter of seconds, all of that was ripped away when they said, we
Yes.
don't need you right now. And there are
Yes.
people that we work with, like our friends, that unfortunately, due to a restructuring, lost their jobs after decades, you know,
Yep.
15,
Yes.
20 years with
Yep.
the company, that they're no longer needed and they lost their
Yes.
jobs. And that for me was the moment that I realized like none of this matters. I could have a
Amen.
No, no.
million dollars, or I could have $1, or I could have no dollars. It doesn't matter because it could all go
Right.
away in an instant.
In an instant, in a twinkling
Mm-hmm.
of an eye. Absolutely, Deb. And that's one thing. You're, of course, I admire your work ethic. I always have. You started as a DM with the company, especially, you know, in the back then, of course, the further PA stores were like the lower volume
Mm-hmm.
stores, you know, all of that. And but you got Penn State, and I saw you become an SM, and then you started coming back down this end training and the way you spoke, and and I saw now that your shift forward, you got a couple accolades with that, but just to see that, of course those things are good, but I knew it was something more. You were rooted different, you know what I mean?
Wow.
You got those things, but you were rooted in something else. And so that just speaks to the growth for you, Deb, because it's good to have that. But it's good to see that that's not the thing that's been
Mm-hmm.
sustaining you. Because even for myself now, Deb, I have been furloughed. I just got recently, promoted in January, and now who knows about my job? But I'm to the point where I don't even care because I'm looking to the next thing. I don't care what, you know what I mean? I'm like, God, you will
Mm-hmm.
provide. And if H&M is not it, then it's just not
Mm-hmm.
it. And that's just where I am in my life. And I'm so glad to hear that you have the same thing. And of course, we've heard a lot of our colleagues, are really, really struggling with this
Mm-hmm.
displacement.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I
Absolutely.
I I
Wow.
feel the same way. I mean, to be honest, when I got the phone call that I was just furloughed, like I prayed before I got on the phone, and I was just like, you know what? Like this is okay. Like if I need to be let go today, it'll be okay. I will
Yep.
be fine. I will figure it out. I have, because the other thing that comes along with having faith for me, and this is my story, maybe you both can agree, but for me, having a relationship with a higher power, I believe that, that God can speak through everyone else. So if I have people
Yes.
in my life who also are, believing in God and are walking that walk, I'm going to be all right. It's going to be all right because
That's
God's going to
right.
put people in my life that'll get me. And again, like I know I'm speaking right now from a place of privilege. I am in an apartment that I can afford to pay the rent right now. Like I have food in the fridge. Like I am in no way, shape, or form going to deny that I'm at a place of privilege in this moment. But I also know that even if I wasn't in a place of privilege, like I would still be okay because there's people that I could go to. And that's the gift of
Yep.
working a program of recovery and having that faith.
I love that.
I love
I love.
that. You brought in full circle a lot of the questions that we were actually gearing
Yes.
to. I love how you kind of narrated your journey,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Yes.
So let me ask you, Dev, what kind of advice would you give to someone on that similar journey? What kind of, I'm going to say, tools you could give them to stay the course?
Yeah, I mean, I think that let me circle back real quick and just kind of give the
Yes.
synopsis of my story a little bit of where my
Yes,
addiction
yes,
went.
because I'm sorry to cut you off again, but I want you to really dig into, if you would, what was the breaking point and then your quest to
Mm-hmm.
recovery, like all that intertwining with now you're staying the course and how you're doing
Mm-hmm.
that.
So, I want to be clear and say that I was always a person who assumed that a drug addict or an alcoholic was that person that we see on movies and TV. So someone that's, under a
Mm.
bridge with a bottle in a bag or, homeless and has nothing or I never could accept that that was me. I didn't start drinking until I was in college. In high school, ironically, I was like in the SAD club, which was Students Against Drunk Driving. And my mom is a nurse and she's worked in the recovery field for my whole entire life. And she worked at a rehab. And our agreement was you can do whatever you want, go to any party you want to, you can drive with the car, like do what you want, but do not drink and do not use drugs, or I will take you to my work and I will leave you there until you get some sense in you. So I respected that. I didn't drink in high school. I didn't smoke cigarettes. I didn't smoke anything else. Like I was a straight edge, good, quote unquote, good kid. And I went to college and it just like all went to shit, I guess. I
Okay.
I found what I thought was like my true love. The second that I took my first drink, everything changed. Suddenly all of the straight guys that I used to fear in high school wanted to be my friend and wanted to, play beer pong with me or play flip cup, and they accepted me because the alcohol made me able to just freely be myself. So this whole time I was telling
Wow.
myself like, oh, it's the alcohol, when really it was just me letting go of some of that fear because of the effects of the alcohol. Allowed them to see
Yes.
who I was and allowed me to just not give a shit if they liked me or not, or if they accepted me. I was just like, here, I'm here. So for a little bit, it was fun. And, you know, Shani, you can remember, I was always down for a good time. I was always
Mm-hmm.
one that was like, where are we drinking? Where are we going? Let's go to a club. Let's go
Yep.
dance. Like I always wanted to be up, up, up. But in the reality of the situation was I was so miserable for so long. I would go to these nights out and with friends, and you know, I was thinking like every night needs to be the most epic night of my life. It needs to be like I'm going to meet all of these people. I'm going to meet my husband, like it's going to be a dream come true. And every night I would leave disappointed because my expectations were never fulfilled, because how could you, you know, how could you fulfill that if I'm putting all that pressure on it? And right
Mm-hmm.
around the time that I met Shani at Harrisburg in 2016 is when the drinking and the drug use on the low was getting to be an all-time high. I mean, I can remember being at that store opening and I drank every single night.
I didn't know that, Deb. I
I
did
would just
not
go
know
back to my
that.
hotel room and I would drink every night. And you know, when we opened my store in State College, it was the same thing. Like that whole store opening, I was drinking every single night, and that just became my life. And the more and more that it went on, the more and more miserable I was. And I describe it now looking back as like everything was so dark. I only wanted to be around people that wanted to, you know, I say now, like I put the kettle away. I don't spill the tea anymore because I just don't want that in my life. I don't want to sit around a table and talk about everybody else and gossip and spread everybody else's dirty laundry. Like that's not fair and it's not productive
Mm-hmm.
to me. But that's who I was back then. Like I was always like, "Ooh, what scoop do you have? Who's doing what? Tell me everything." Like let's complain, let's, you know, and it was just so dark all the time. And you know, relationships were coming and going, and of course I was obsessing with them because I was making them my higher power. They were my god.
Yes.
They were going to fix me. They were going to solve everything. And the more that they didn't solve it, the more I drank to make it better, to run from those feelings, and the more I used other drugs, until eventually it came to a point where like I had to go to the hard drugs because the alcohol wasn't even enough. There
Wow.
came a
Wow.
point where it out of nowhere, and that's really like the breaking point. I started with trying to get sober in 2017. In May I had a pretty bad week of continuous drug use. And I sought out, I called a friend of mine, Shantell, you probably remember her, Nicole, from 517.
Yep. Yep.
Yes.
I called
Uh-huh.
her and I, you know, I was like, we need to take a walk. I have to tell you something. And that was the first time I said out loud, like, I think that I have a problem. This doesn't seem right. You know, I just spent a week using drugs that I would never admit to in a public setting. You know, this wasn't just me smoking a little weed on the weekends. And I've been drinking
Mm.
every single night. Like I don't know what to do. So she helped me find a counselor, a mental health counselor, you know, that she had used. And she was like, you know, call her. And I went to counseling and I was like, I just want to stop doing drugs. And my counselor said, well, you're gonna have to stop drinking too, because alcohol is a drug. And I was like, oh, okay, never mind. And I didn't go back because I couldn't
Wow.
Wow.
handle. I was like, the thought of not being able to drink for the rest of my life, like this is all I have. This is everything. I didn't go back.
Yes.
And I started seeing another guy. I almost got engaged to him. I was manipulating him to do, you know, to fill me up however I needed to be full. And that's the, you know, when I started getting sober after we broke up with him, because I woke up one day and I realized I have not been sober in I can't tell you how long. Like I couldn't think of one single day that I went without something in my body, whether it be a
Wow.
drink, whether it be a bunch of drinks, whether it be some drugs or whatever. Like I could not tell you the last time that I didn't have. And now I don't want to say that like every single day of my life was like a blackout, because that wasn't the truth for me. But I can tell you that I could not remember the last time that I didn't pick up something in a single 24-hour period. So that's when I
Wow.
ventured into 12-step work, and I, you know, started working a program and going through the 12 steps. But there was still something missing. I really couldn't latch on to this idea of a higher power, which is, you know, the whole thing we do in the 12-step world is like we get ourselves to trust and have faith in a higher power and do some other things that help us, you know, recover or stay in recovery.
Yes.
But I just couldn't get it. And I eventually would have a relapse in September of 2018, which was definitely the breaking point. It got to the point where I went right back to where I left off and then some. And the addiction had just progressed so much that within, 33 days, I had lost 30 pounds. I was alone in an apartment building, like strung out, nervous, a mess. Like it was the lowest point of my life. And that's when I knew something
Wow.
has to change. I have to get this right. I have to start being honest with myself and I have to start doing this work. And that's when I came back into the 12-step rooms. I went to rehab to, get myself together. And I did that for 6 months. I was in outpatient rehab. So I would go to work in the afternoons and I would go to rehab in the mornings 4 days a week. And then I would go to, meetings at night. Like it was just like my life was just, I got to, do recovery. And I've been doing that work with one slip. It was like a one day. We joke in the recovery community of like, sometimes you just got to do a little bit more experimenting. So I did have a one day slip where I realized like, nope, this isn't working. So my sobriety dates reset. So I am going on a year now, June 24th, God willing. If I make it to June 24th, it'll be 1 year of continuous sobriety. But I've been doing this journey since 2017. Not perfection, it's progress, but that's kind of like how it all happened. And honestly, the work I've been able to do during this quarantine on my recovery, I'm so grateful for the time to really just dig into some of this stuff and to realize how fearful I was my whole life and to realize how much I resented other people in my life for things that I do to other people too. And just to really take an honest look at myself to see like where I can do better and how I can better, live my life in a way that shows everybody else what God can do. Because I don't want to tell people about God. I don't want to tell people that, like the people who told me that I just need God in my life, I want to show them what God can do.
Woo!
Wow.
Come
I
on
love
in here,
it.
Deb. Deb. Oh, stay right there. Okay. I love it. Oh, goodness. Wow. Wow. I'm so proud of you.
I'm
I'm
just
so proud of you.
speechless. I'm just like enjoying this conversation so much. And your testimony is so great, Dev. I know this is going to help so many.
Mm-hmm.
And I just thank you
And
so much for being so open to
transparent.
discussing this, in your journey. It's so real. It's so potent to a lot of things that's going on today. And now that a lot of people are in isolation, you never know what they're tormented with
Mm-hmm.
in this time.
Mhm.
So for you to really share this with us, I know it's going to help so many people. Your testimony, to God be the glory.
Amen,
Yes.
sister. Amen.
And
I could
Dev,
go in. I'm just like,
I know. I mean, I think
I love it.
that it's to your point, I've been fearful and I have to be careful because I can't project my own fears on other people. But I mean,
Yes.
we see it. We see everybody drinking all day long, every day on
Yes.
Instagram.
Yep.
Yes.
And I it
Yep.
makes me nervous because I'm like, all right, like how many of these people are actually really, because that was the thing. Like I was known for being the person that's like bringing the party. Like I wouldn't
Yes.
show up anywhere without alcohol. I wouldn't show up anywhere without a little fun in the bag. And when I started telling people like, nope, I'm an addict or I'm an alcoholic or whatever I choose to identify with, a lot of people struggled with accepting that. And it would, I got a lot of people saying, oh, you just need to learn how to drink better, or you just need to slow down, or don't drink as much. And I would, that would get in my head and I would say like, yeah, they're right. But now I know, and my response to those people is, if I could do that, I would already be doing it, but I can't. I
I
can't
know
I
have
that's
know
one.
that's
right.
right.
I can't have one. For all my people out there that go on diets and you see like a bag of fun size Snickers, can you just have one of them? Like, I cannot just have one of anything.
That's right.
Especially not a drink or a drug. I cannot do it. It's not within my ability to just have one. So I do feel for the people that are out there, and anybody who listens to this, like, if you are sitting at home watching all your friends on Instagram, virtual happy hours, and you're thinking like, ooh, I don't want to be doing this as much and I don't really know how, like, there is plenty of things. There are plenty of solutions. And you just have to reach out the hand, and somebody will be there. I most certainly will be there for anybody who needs it. But it does make me nervous.
I love
you know,
that.
I do say a prayer for everybody that's like, you know, let them come when they're ready. But I hope that everybody finds their way into recovery if that's where they feel they need to be.
That's right. Dev, how can people who want to reach out to you, how can they find you on Instagram? Can you tell us your handle?
Yes. So my Instagram is at dev_sta_gram. So at Devstagram. My on Facebook, my name is Dev Michael Drollinger, DROLLINGER. So they can reach out to me that way. But Instagram's probably the easiest, because I do tend to delete Facebook every once in a while to give myself a little mental health break, because that's another important thing. Like, social media, less is more.
Yes.
Less is more.
This is so very true.
Absolutely.
And I have to tell you something about yourself, and this is where we are like kindred spirits. You know, honestly, Dev, even with you talk, the way your nuances, the way your voice sound, it's so melodic, it's so soothing, it has such a southern undertone. I am intrigued by what you're saying, and you don't have to be drinking anything. So I want to boost your confidence in knowing that. Dev, just hearing you talk, I just want to sit down and listen to you speak. And even Shantell just said that. You
That's
know what
right.
I mean? So I mean, and honestly, I'm going to speak something into you, Dev. You have to start a podcast. I don't know when you want to do it, but you have to do it, because the way you speak, Dev,
Amen.
the clarity in what you speak, your tone, you enunciate your words, you're great at narration. You know, I don't know if you want to have a co-host, whatever but this is something I feel like is a platform for you.
Yes, absolutely.
You're a teacher by nature, Dev. And I think that with your loving spirit, that I just pray that God just go ahead and just uses you in that way. And I just want to encourage you in that. But I see that for you, Dev. I do.
Well,
I really do. I really do.
I definitely agree.
You know, there's some, the thought has come across. I'm just waiting for, you know, the right time. So if y'all want to have me on here as like a special guest once a month, I'm into it.
Well, amen. We're
Absolutely.
into it too.
No, we're into it. Oh, we're
absolutely
into it. Okay?
Absolutely. But Deb, I couldn't agree more. And you know what they say, you know, when 2 or 3 are gathered, okay?
Yep.
That's confirmation,
okay?
You know?
Yep.
So I definitely believe that is definitely one of your gifts. Storytelling is definitely one of your gifts, and your testimony is so needed.
Yep.
Even if you break it down on so many levels, Dev, you will definitely touch many with your testimony, with your story. And because of your fever for God, I won't do it.
I mean, go off.
It's
yes, girl.
oh my God, it's impactful. And if I can feel it through, you know, just this phone, I know that even sitting next to you, it's powerful, you know, and God is good. And I'm just so proud of you. And I can't say that enough. I don't know you, but I know you.
You do.
Ooh,
yeah.
Yep.
I know you.
Yep.
And I want you to know that this will not be the last time that we connect. God willing, we're going to have you on this show again and again, because if this is going to be the seed of purpose, then we're going to make sure you get to it. And it's going to be activated right here on the Shantell Show.
Yeah. I'm so into it.
Yes.
I love being able to, this gives me purpose. I mean, I believe that God did not pluck me out of the pack and put me on the journey that I went through for no reason. So like,
I know that's right.
I can't
Yeah.
just be
He
like
couldn't,
a
baby. He
you know, a
couldn't.
drug addict and an alcoholic that doesn't have any, like, that was all for a reason. And I really
Come on
believe
now.
Come
that
on. Come
when
on.
I say like, and some of my friends who are going to listen to this that knew me before are going to really probably be shocked, because I was not a spiritual person before. I was
Mm.
not somebody who uttered the word God, who, you know,
Wow.
I wanted so badly to not believe in God, but I was raised, I wasn't raised Catholic, but I went to Catholic school for a little bit just because of, they were the nicer schools.
Yes.
A lot of money there, but besides the point.
Yes.
But so I was, you know, introduced to that religion, and I grew up believing that there was a heaven and there was a hell and things like that. You know, we don't have to get into the logistics, but so for a long
Yes.
time I wanted so badly to believe that there wasn't God, but I was afraid to
Yes.
not believe in God, just in case maybe there was a hell and I was going to go there
Yes.
if I didn't believe. So like that
Yes.
seed was in there a little,
Yes.
but then somebody said to me, and it was my first sponsor in AA. Oops, sorry, my recovery program. That said to me,
Deb, wherever you are, go somewhere else
oh,
because you're
sorry.
breaking up.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
perfect. So it was my first sponsor in my recovery program that said to me when we were talking about my relationship with higher power. And I was like, I just, you know, I was struggling with believing. And he was like, who are you to say that there is no God? Who are you to say that there is no God? And I was like, oh yeah, you're right. Like, who am I to say? Like,
That's right.
what do I know? Like, and I've read
Yep.
something that's really stuck with me. And now, as I've worked my program, like, I'm a firm believer that there is something else out there. Call it whatever you want.
Yep.
But there is
That's
something
right.
else that is guiding us through this. Like, this is not by mistake. This is not by
That's
mistake.
right.
Yep.
But for a long time, what helped me find faith, for anybody who's trying to, you know, change their mindset or have a new way of thinking, was the idea of, I would rather live my whole life believing that God is real, to die and find out that it wasn't, than to live my whole life believing that God was not real, than to die and find out that he was real. So that helped me immensely. And now I don't care what happens, because I have my own views of what happens to us when we shed this human form. But
All right now.
Yep.
for a while, I used to tell myself that. I would be like, you know what, today, if I die today, I would rather just die believing that there is a God and just be a little disappointed when whatever happens to me happens and I find out there isn't one, than the opposite, than to sit here and try to denounce that there is a God,
Yep.
only to be
Come
greeted
on
by
now.
whatever God is on the other side and be like, oop, shit, I should have
There you go.
prayed a little bit more and said hello a little bit more.
Yep. Come on in here,
Come
Deb.
on.
I love it.
Well, guys,
Wow.
again, the conversation will always continue. You can follow us on Instagram at Shantell on everything. You can also visit us on our podcast on YouTube, Shantell on everything. Yes, this has been a wonderful conversation. And guys, please feel free. Reach out to Dev, friend him, because it's going to be more on the way with him. Okay. Until
Yes.
next time,
Yes.
guys.
This concludes this week's episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. Until next time, Shantell
On everything.